Hi, and welcome to the Emerging Technologies Horizons podcast. I'm Arun Serafin, Executive Director of NDIA's Emerging Technologies Institute. Today joining us is General Guy Walsh, the founding Executive Director of UTSA's National Security Collaboration Center. We're right here at the Collaboration Center as part of the Science and Engineering Technology Division's annual meeting, which we're holding here at UTSA's campus. I've been doing a series of live podcasts here. Guy's the progenitor of this facility and gave us a great opportunity to hold our division meeting here. Thank you for that.
Oh, very well.
The other thing, we'll get to this at the end of the podcast. Guy is about to join the NDIA team, coming in as our new Chief Operating Officer, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Big loss to UTSA, a big win for us. So we'll talk about that later.
Absolutely.
So as we get into this podcast here at the division meeting, I think one of the things that we've been highlighting in the podcast we've been recording here is the fact that, this conference is really focused on the mission needs that the department is facing, particularly those of U.S. Northcom, and how the science and technology community can address some of those mission needs. And so I think that's something that you've been working on your whole career. So can you give us a little background for the NDIA members who are going to get to know you over the next few years? Tell us about your background, your military career, and what you've been doing here at UTSA before you're joining us at NDIA.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. First, again, thanks for the opportunity to join with the group here for the podcast. So from a background perspective, I would offer that the majority of my background was on the operational side of the house, as opposed to the strategic or the policy making. And I think that is what has given me some advantages over the years. So again, Air Force Academy graduate, came out of there, went flying over in Europe for about 4 years, spent some time at the test center. So very diverse in terms of my flying career. Out at the Edwards Test Center, converted airplanes at that time from an F4 that many folks on the podcast may remember, but a great airframe for its time. And then after that went into the A-10 Thunderbolts. Got to fly that for about a quarter of a century. And so the opportunity of being part of that, the close air support community, also gave me the opportunity to spend a lot of time with the ground forces. And so a lot of my assignments of going to Leavenworth for Command General Staff College and going to joint schools and doing a National Defense Fellowship. So that diversity of changing career fields throughout that. That was for about a 23-year active duty career. Following that, I had the opportunity to go on to the other side of the forces, which is the reserve side, the National Guard. And so I was wing commander of the Maryland National Guard and had the opportunity to do that. So the Guard guys call me the active duty guy. The active duty guys call me the Guard guy. And also while I was there, I had the opportunity to move from what I'll say is, you can't say A-10 fast mover, but from the single seat type, fighter type and attack type community to fly the C-130 and to learn about some of the things that are done in the airlift side of the house. And opportunity to do that. And then probably the magic day came when General Gary North met with me down while we were doing an exercise in Florida and said, "Hey, Guy, I'd like you to become the initial wing commander to stand up operations in Kandahar, Afghanistan." This was during the surge in 2009, 2010 type timeframe. And so in 2009 was given the opportunity to stand up the 451st Air Expeditionary Wing. We started with about 3 airframes with a few helicopters, a few C-130s, and several UAS drone type operations. And we grew it to 9 different platforms, over 90 aircraft, surveillance. We brought down the A-10s to do close air support, significantly increased a lot of our fleets there. So the opportunity to stand that up and be one of the first wing commanders from the Guard to go on to active duty and do that since World War II was a great privilege to do that. Coming back from there I had worked previously as the Chief of Air Operations at U.S. Central Command and sat down as the next to General Keith Alexander for several years as we were doing a lot of the Operation Southern Watch. And oh, by the way, when I was the group commander when I was the wing commander at the Maryland National Guard, my airlift group commander was a young gentleman by the name of Chris Inglis. Yeah. So between the two of those, now who eventually became, when I came back from Afghanistan, were the director and the deputy director of the National Security Agency, they asked me to come on board there. I initially said no, very simply, and said, I'm not an intel guy and I know nothing about cyber. And General Alexander said very succinctly, he said, you're not coming here to learn cyber. You're here to teach people about war fighting, about war planning, execution, and change the culture from being support to operators. And over the past 10 years, to watch what that community has done, and it's the community that did it, but really to change into the warfighter attitude, the warfighter approach, building cyber mission teams, execute and training has been huge. Had that opportunity to do that for General Alexander, for Admiral Rogers, and General Paul Nakasone, who announced his retirement, and worked closely with General Hawk, who is now about to become the new director of the NSA and commander U.S. Cyber Command. And following that, I knew I wanted to go into academia. Did my first interview with Mark Welsh at Texas A&M. My boss got that job, and it worked out great for Kevin McLaughlin. And then was given the opportunity here by President Taylor Amy, and at that time, the Texas Chancellor, which was former Navy SOCOM commander at that time. And so that's how I ended up here at UTSA.
That's great. I I want to admit you did a pretty good job with your bio there, but he did leave out a lot of details. So for all of you, find Guy at our future meetings and events. Please grill him and color in some of the details of that introduction. But thanks for joining us today.
Thanks,
so
Arun.
we're sitting here today in San Pedro 1. And that's the National Security Collaboration Center. And that's a building that, you helped envision. Maybe you envisioned it. You started to put this together. Tell us about this center, this building we're in, what your goals were for it, and what's happening now, what your plans are for it.
So let me go back and start where the credit is due. Is first Admiral McCraven, who was the Chancellor of Texas UT Systems at that time, and President Taylor Amy, and at that time General Mary O'Brien, now the J6, but previously was here in San Antonio. The concept of the NSCC being established, but being established here in San Antonio, in Military City, USA, adjacent with 16th Air Force, adjacent with Army North, adjacent with NSA Texas, all of those type of things. So the decision to put that here was a significant decision. The decision in terms of raising the dollars for this facility, because again, vision without resources is hallucination, right? So, but that came from a combination. So first of all, the city of San Antonio, Bexar County.
I find that offensive being from Capitol Hill. Okay.
But to the point is the city provided this location. And if you could look behind the box here, across the street is City Hall. So Mayor Ron Nirenberg walks over for our eatery, our restaurant that's sitting here in the building. We have the Bexar County judge across catty corner from us, Judge Sakai, and his predecessor, Judge Wolf, who set aside the property to say, hey, great cities need great universities. So the idea of putting the San Pedro 1 facility, which is a combination of the National Security Collaboration Center, but equally important, the School of Data Science, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, here was huge. The UT Systems and our new Chancellor, Chancellor Milliken, and the advisory board were the ones who funded this. So a lot of the dollars to build a facility that's an over $90 million facility. So it's that combination, that team. That all happened well before I got here in terms of making that happen.
And so when you build a facility like this, I think what you're trying to do is focus in the efforts of the federal community, the state community, the local community, like you're talking about, and bringing together industries, universities, small businesses, defense, commercial. Well, why do you think that's so important? Why is this a good place to try to do that?
Yeah. So let me start and just not to correct you because this is your podcast, but the facility itself, again, it's part of a university. And so first of all, it starts with the design of this building. So we had the design. So we put out, it was August. I got here in July. So it must have been August of 2019. We put out the bids for proposal and we walked out in front of the group, about 200 people. It was about 120 degrees in the room, standing room only. And we had our chief who had just from the university, Veronica Salazar, had put out the task to say, we want to build the most amazing, up-to-date, fifth-generation classrooms and work areas for our students. My boss at that time, Dr. Bernard Arulanandam from research, talked about the laboratories and the research that we were building into this facility. I was the third speaker, and I simply got up and said, if you came here to build classrooms and research facilities, you're in the wrong place. because this will be the most complex facility on any campus in the United States. That's the part, and I think we'll get into that in terms of dual use facility, in terms of being able to have classified workspace, in terms of being, number one is, the university had never had a LEED certified, the energy efficient buildings. I said, if we're going to work with the government, we better be LEED certified. So this is the first LEED certified building for the university. The location we already talked about, but that was all part of that planning. The actual design of this facility was done primarily through the vision of our deans, of our professors, of our center and institute directors. And I will simply say that, the design team that was Jacobs Overland, and then the build team that executed that vision to bring it to what we're sitting in today was Whiting Turner. And so by listening very closely to what the deans, the professors, and what we said in terms of the design of supporting the ecosystem that you just brought up, brilliantly done by Whiting Turner and the design team. So again, all credit to the folks who were able to bring that to bear to the building we're sitting in now.
So then talk about a little bit of the specialness of the building. What are some of the unique features here, facility-wise, people-wise, that you might find if you're coming to work in this? So
I'll tell the first thing again is as we grow to become the largest university in UT systems, the first thing is we're at about 35,000 students now. How do we get to 45,000 students? How do we become bigger than UT in Austin? Some folks have heard of UT Austin, and some folks haven't heard of UTSA. So how do you do that? So the first part of that is we have to have wow factors. Okay. The first wow factor when you walk in the front doors of this facility is you're going to see our security operations center, a world-class security operations center. Most people bury that in the basement. You don't get to talk to those people. Ours, and for those, we have smart glass all along the walls there, and you'll see it's about 10 times larger than our previous security operations center. Here's the reason: is you have the operational area where the folks who run the security operations center are. But we're a university, so what do we want to do? We want to teach people about Security Operations Center. How do I run a Security Operations Center? How do I build the playbook to do that? Exercise, train, and do those things. So we build what I'll call that classroom space right next to this, where we're going to train people. If you get ransomware, what do you do? Who do you notify? What do you do technically to the system? But who do you have to talk to? What does the university president need to know? What does the ISAC need to know? What does the city of San Antonio need to know? What is that information that can be shared? The third part that we built, and this is why it's large also, the last piece is what I call and from an Air Force, the Wing Operations Center, the current operations center, those things. So when you want to take this facility, and if there's a major crisis, a major emergency, call it hurricane, call it those things. At that time, we're not worried about professors and students showing up for class, right? Everything that's canceled. So that's why we wanted to develop this place where the mayor, the commander of 16th Air Force, the commander of Army North could run operations out of this building. So it's agnostic to whether that be a federal entity, the city entity, or Frost Bank directly across the street here. So that is the first feature that we have. We're sitting behind a portal right here. The portal's pretty neat because hopefully you'll have the opportunity, but with a little bit of software and an iPad, you can project your 3D image here. And so we could have David Norquist from NDIA do a presentation to the classroom right in front of us here on these stairs, real time, see his audience, and do that. And that's regardless of whether David's in Washington, D.C., in France, or in Australia.
Yeah, you've got your UTSA Roadrunner, I guess.
We do. He's running around in the box right over here.
Right, so. Right. And I noticed upstairs a lot of collaboration space, all wired up to do networking and things like that. And like you said, you're going to have controlled spaces as well. But this is still a university campus. There's a tradition of academic openness. And so how are you going to balance the classified versus unclassified information and the people that have to come into this kind of space? Yeah,
so I will tell you the first thing is we had two important pieces there. One was in terms of the security of our federal partners, U.S. citizens, those type pieces there. Number two is we wanted to encourage and make happen research by our foreign partners, by our international students, by our international researchers. That's been the success of the U.S. all along, right? I mean, if you look at some of those relations with many of our foreign partners, okay? And so we have actually specifically designed areas within our data center that are meant for international programs, international projects, and we do that. And the areas where we need to have a higher level of, whether you call it security or protecting intellectual property, right? Because we're talking industry here. We have those areas. So we have separated those out and been able to encourage both. We don't discourage at all our diversity of thought and our international partners.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that the DoD's modernization innovation efforts are as bad as good as they can be if you're only going to depend on those super secure facilities and those people that we're super trusted to work with. And that one of our advantages is opening up the doors to other people working with us. That's a huge advantage that the U.S. has over some of our competitor nations who don't have the same ability to attract people to come and work with them. How, from an NDIA member perspective, are you going to similarly? You're probably going to be dealing with a lot of corporate proprietary information. How are you planning to deal with those kinds of issues?
So first, let me talk. There's a technological piece and there's a policy piece there. So on the technology piece, I would offer that our Dell data center that is on the third floor of the facility here has through microsegmentation, through physical security, through digital security, has created that opportunity. In fact, when we go up there, if you look at the pictures, you've probably seen a couple of the Dell data center. We have what I'll say is a lot of our primes that we have helped to develop this. Obviously, with the relationship between UTSA and Dell Technologies and Dell Federal has been a long-standing relationship. Jeff Clark, the Chief Operating Officer, UTSA graduate. But having said that, that investment up there really is looking at having the front office is what I call our showcase. And that is where a lot of our NSCC partners and our school data science partners are going to showcase the newest and greatest in terms of whether it be Cisco products, whether it be from Dell, whether it be Palo Alto, Microsoft, Amazon. We remain agnostic to any, just like NDIA. We're not supporting one particular, we're supporting the research of, let's just say, cloud integration, cloud transformation. And we do that with all these partners. So the very front showcase is to do that type piece there. And part of that is going to be by having those type of partners to be able to demonstrate, especially to our small businesses and our new innovative businesses, how are you protecting my intellectual property? How are you doing that? So that's, I'm going to say, the technical part. The other part in all is policy. It comes down to how do you regulate and how do you oversee, I'm going to say, resilience of the system and the security systems and those type pieces there. So a lot of people can buy some great technology, but if you're unable to put the policies in place, and so I won't get into detail on the policy, but that I would say we spend 30% of our time on the technology, 70% of the time on having the right policies to enable what technology gives us the capability to do.
That's great, but enough of this UTSA stuff. Let's talk about NDIA. So this is your first day of school picture. You're coming to NDIA. Tell us about what you're coming to do, why you're excited to come, what should we see looking into the future of your work at NDIA?
So first, for those who knew Major General retired Jim Boozer, he was irreplaceable. I will also tell you while I'm new to getting a paycheck from NDIA, I'm not new to NDIA. I've had the opportunity working with Dick McCon, with Arnold Panaro, with Craig McKinley, with Hawk and others over the years, both initially in helping to stand up one of the divisions with the Cyber Augmented Operations Division that I had the opportunity to be the chair of being the chair for the JADC2 conference every year since our inception of that type program. Have the opportunity to work really closely with the team up at Lone Star chapter over the last year here.
So you touch divisions,
chapter,
conferences, and chapters.
Yeah,
right?
And I'm guessing, again, that was part of why David and the team invited me to come back there. And the other part of that is obviously I knew most of the staff, having worked on the conference side, having worked on the chapter side, having worked on running conferences. So I knew what I was getting into and was looking forward to now working closer and more full-time with a lot of the folks that I've had the opportunity, as well as a lot of the new folks I've been meeting this week over there. So,
and I think it's fair to say that, at all these events, you'd love to hear from the members about what they need, what they would like to see from NDIA going forward.
Yeah, we've started that. I had the distinct privilege of being able to be part of the award team for the Eisenhower Award for Jay Raymond a couple of weeks ago. And first of all, if you haven't been to an Eisenhower Award dinner, you need to go to that. That is just a moving event. I had the opportunity to go there when I was a division commander for General Hyten's Eisenhower Award. and then with General Raymond. So that's, I guess that's my plug for that piece there. And now you have to remind me what the question was on that.
No, the leadership of NDIA, I've seen the board from NDIA wants to hear from the membership, wants to hear from the chapters.
So that was
what can we do, right?
Yeah, that was my first opportunity to sit down and talk with lots of what I'll say, both the industry reps and to talk and meet with them firsthand outside of that. So in that environment, prior to that, I was very specific on a conference and getting the speakers. But now the opportunity to speak with a lot of leadership of both our large and our primary, the defense industrial base team, the new and innovative teams there, that will probably be the biggest priority, is getting to hear that. Because again, that's what we represent, right? We're representing that 1,800, 1,900 organizations across the board, and unless I understand what their desires are for the organization. So the opportunity to join David Norquist, Jen Stewart, Arun is just something, again, I look forward to. I'm not there yet. Again, I get in a car, we pack up, the pods are in the driveway right now. The piano gets shipped, I think, tomorrow. We'll start our long haul across country, and then hopefully in the next week or two, be settling in.
So we're happy to have you, and welcome to NDIA. You did a good job of mentioning the JADC2 conference and the Eisenhower dinner. You did a bad job of mentioning the Emerging Technologies Conference, which
I've
is
been pushing that all week in the room here. So
it's coming in August, end of August 28th to 30th. We hope that the members join similar conversations to the ones that we're having here at the S&T conference about how emerging technologies are shaping the battlefield of the future, how we can move those technologies faster, how we can bring together those new teams from big industry, defense industry, commercial industry, the small businesses, and the universities to meet and partner with the government to do a better job of delivering technologies. So thank you again for joining me today on the podcast. Appreciate your time. Thank you all for joining us on the podcast today. If you like our podcast, please be sure to subscribe on our YouTube page. Also, make sure you keep an eye out on our website and on our YouTube page for all the activities of the Emerging Technologies Institute. Thank you again to today's episode of the Emerging Technologies Horizons podcast.
Thanks, Arun.